Welcome to another episode of Anyways, episode by episode video podcast discussion of the television series Deadwood. We are now on episode 2 of season 2, which is called Lie Agreed Upon Part 2. And we just finished watching Bullock retrieve his badge and gun from Swearengen, and Alma and Bullock decide about their situation versus his wife and child. What do you guys think of this episode?
I enjoyed it. I feel like the resolution kind of went about the way I thought it might. I didn't think this was really going to come to a violent, bloody head, mainly because we still have so much of the show left to go. Yeah, I dug this episode.
You know, it's interesting. You bring up the decision. One of the big things is the decision that Alma and Bullock have to make. And what I think is interesting is I think that Swearengen, strangely enough, is the one who is like the last word on it. Because when he's talking to Bullock, he's like, you can't just abandon your...
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can't just like cut and run or something.
Yeah.
And then that's when I think he kind of was like, all right.
Yeah, he gives that almost inspirational speech.
He
like,
does. It's strange.
How all the different difficulties we, no matter how many problems we have, it's like a self-help speech.
Yeah.
Intermixed with the references to anal prostate simulation. It's just really very odd. And then he has this bizarre face.
It's a nightmare face.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because he keeps opening his other eye that he can still open way too wide. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it just looks like Freddy Krueger or something. It's like horrifying.
Yeah.
his face is...
And somehow he's able to
topographical
regain...
map.
This episode... Al regains his swagger,
yeah.
Like at least by the end, he's a little bit. Even with the nightmare face, he's still, like you said, he has that eyebrow that he raises.
Yes,
he looks. I mean, there's one moment where he, I guess we should save that till we get to the end. But it's just like he has this eyebrow raise, which is just such an hilarious image, and he's amazing. I like these two episodes a lot. I think they wrap up the tension between Bullock and Swearengen from season 1.
Yeah.
And they do it in a climactic, grand fashion where the ending of season 1 is actually very quiet. Mm-hmm. The episode starts with a Doc Cochran is checking on Swearengen and
checking his chest wraps, and also inquiring about his urinary health, his volume
of piss.
What mark
his... And he said that he doesn't remember the mark, but that the volume was quite adequate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've seen him throughout the first season over in the corner of the room peeing while other people in the room. Mm-hmm. But last episode when Bullock entered the room, we hear him say, age doesn't impede my stream. No, fear of you doesn't impede my stream, not just age. Yeah. And then he says, fucking thing, and then pulls himself back in. Yeah. And then today, in this episode, we learned that he's having some trouble.
Well, he grabbed his gut or his his kidney in the last episode.
Right.
Apropos, it was before the Bullock and him fight. Yeah. So I was like, has he got a kidney stone, or is there an infection of some other kind that he's dealing with? So I don't know what the answer to that is, but it seemed.
What are gleats?
Well, yeah, that is a good question. Do you know?
Yes, I do, because in fact, episode 4 of the season is entitled "Sympathy for a Gleat." This is after the Nancy Sinatra reference in the episode 11. Alma's boots are made for walking. This is, I guess, sympathy for the devil. I think it's called sympathy for a gleat. I may be wrong, but there's something for a gleat. Or anyway,
sympathy for the gleats.
Gleats seem to be something that blocks the urethra, blood.
So it's
buildup.
Kidney stone.
No, you said a blood buildup?
I'm not sure if it's a blood or a calcium deposit, but it's I think it may be a kidney stone related thing.
Okay.
But we cannot. I would say that that's a very astute.
We just know that they're fucking hard to pass.
We know they're hard to pass, right? But
because of the song.
because of what?
The song.
The song.
The theme song to this show
is.
To this
Gleets
show?
are fucking hard.
Oh, that's
to
weird.
pass.
That's in the theme part. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what he was saying. Okay.
That's what he was saying. Oh my god.
Okay, yeah, because you have prior knowledge that there's Gleets in the series.
Yeah.
Right. I've never heard of Gleets outside the series, but I also.
So that sounds like kidney stones.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, we can either confirm
I didn't
or
really
deny.
know what they were when the song was written. I just knew that the word was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't. I can't say because that would be a spoiler.
But yeah,
I guess,
we've got a couple of more episodes to go.
Yeah. But after, I don't remember how Doc. Basically, Swearengen keeps getting interrupted. I think the scene continues after we switch to Bullock and Alma, but
It's another kind of like
intercutting.
Yeah, but like it's another kind of Marx Brothers sketch or something where people are like coming in and then interrupting, and then they try to go back to the conversation, and then people are coming in again. It's like it's just.
And then Al forbids all more questions on that.
All the
Yes.
talk about the piss.
Yes.
But yeah, Johnny interrupts with the clean suit from Wu, which smells bad because of the solvents used.
But don't hang it on the fucking balcony.
Not the fucking balcony.
He
And
leaves, and then
Farnham, I believe.
Comes in and asks. He tells that Bullock is with the widow.
yes,
And he says he didn't listen to hear for the song of the bedspread or bed springs.
The bedstead,
Bedstead, yeah.
something like that.
He's
Yeah.
just in there, fucking gossiping about people fucking.
Yeah. And he was tasked to seeing about the new prostitutes that arrived in town last episode. And Al just kind of offhand dismisses them, and you can hear him mutter, "I'll go see about those whores," like really softly as he walks out of the room.
Well, because he keeps getting given busy work,
Yes.
so he'll say the fuck out of
Yeah. Yeah.
Al's
does not
face.
care.
No, he doesn't care at all.
But Farnham does not process that. And
No.
he's worried that he's going to earn further rebuke. And
Yes.
it's just like, poor guy. All right, so Bullock and Alma are in her room, and they're deciding what they should do.
To do.
Yeah.
That's really the whole idea behind that scene. Is like either I leave with you,
Yes.
or we stay and I don't talk to you anymore.
We don't do this thing
It's like-
anymore.
Yeah,
Sever connection, and
yeah.
and he, Bullock says, like to stay here and be with you would be to renew her emulation daily.
Yeah.
And she kind of winces, like, "Oh, you're thinking more about your wife than me, who
Right.
loves you."
Right.
And he just he returns kind of to the comatose walking around with rimrod posture, or like he just last episode he met her by hugging her and just being held by her. In this episode he just is like, "Now I'm going to go," and he just walks out of her room. And it's interesting.
Well, yeah. It's almost the Brahm and Alma, scenes again, where it's like now we're in some sort of Victorian novel or something where we're talking about running away together or whatever, and it's like every time we enter that room everything slows down. We just have to talk about their love and all that, and it's like, just fucking do it or don't. Who gives a shit? God damn.
Well, I really felt for Alma. She seems every time the Alma sections are always, when I first viewing, they're always so slow, but
Yeah.
you're exactly right. That room is like a made of sand, or like
Sucks the air out of everything.
but it's also because she's privileged and she has more money. So it's just like
and the conversations can go slower because of that.
because she doesn't have to worry so much.
Yeah.
Right.
But and also she never leaves a room.
Well, she does seem a bit devoid of agency in terms of like she's practically like just stuck in that room, and like
Right.
she I don't know. Bullock said like it's up to you, or she said like so you're saying it's up to me, and he's like, yeah, and I need your answer tonight. And then like it gets answered not by her, but
Right.
like by
they both answer it for themselves.
Yeah, it seems like Alma sees what goes on with Bullock. I hope it's jumping ahead to the end there, but like sees what goes on with Bullock and Swearengen and gets what just happened
And what that means.
Yeah, that he's sticking around. He's not going off with her.
Yeah, he's not fleeing down.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I didn't necessarily draw that from him getting his badge back. He could have gotten the badge back and also left town. I would say.
That's yeah.
I guess
that is
just to
true.
prove a point, but I don't know. In a weird way, it does seem like it makes sense that there's a finality to that.
Yeah.
Because why would you go get your badge back if you're going to just leave town?
I mean, let's
Yeah.
talk about that more when we get to
Yeah,
more
yeah,
about
sure.
this decision.
Yeah,
But I feel that if I had a problem with this episode, it is kind of how it wraps up the Alma and subplot. And I'm afraid to give spoilers for future parts of the season. But
Yeah.
anyway, Alma is stuck in this room, and Bullock is just like, "Look, you make a decision. I'm gonna go out and try to get myself killed again. I'll see you later."
What's that Boone movie where they're all stuck in that?
And the exterminating angel.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't leave a dinner party.
Yeah.
And they're stuck there and they're starving. They're all dressed in tuxedos and they're like eating a sheep that like wanders into their mansion.
Yeah.
It's a very good movie.
Yeah, that's her existence.
Yeah. Alma, like every time I see Alma, like Molly Parker is an amazing actress.
Yeah.
She is.
And-
She's incredible.
And she's usually does not play uptight Victorian ladies.
No.
And this is like she's so good at this, and like every actor in the show, she's on point every time. And you really feel how all the women basically point out how caged they feel by different things that they have to do.
Yeah.
A lot of them are just like, this setup really sucks, and it sucks being treated badly.
Yeah.
And then we get to Saul is bandaged in bed, and I think Trixie and Utter and Merrick are moving him.
Yes.
And Trixie's a lot more vocal in this episode than she's been. She's a bit mute a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of lets her actions speak for themselves. And in this episode, she's not about that.
Yeah, oh God.
She's saying
Just
exactly,
taking charge every single step of the way, basically.
Her first kind of like order to Utter and Merrick is like,
just get the fuck out of here.
yeah, or we
Like, look fucking out.
look fucking out,
Look
yeah.
fucking out.
And then she like talks about how she hopes that his pain of his bullet wound is gnawing at him like the worst animal chewing upon him possible, because she's afraid that he will become addicted to the opium that they've given him for pain.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think meanwhile, like Utter and Merrick are having a conversation about getting the badge and going back.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to get weapons or whatever. And Merrick is trying to whisper, and Charlie Utter doesn't know why he's whispering.
And wonderfully, we can tell which ear Utter can't hear out by this huge just swipe of gunshot
Yeah.
grease across his face.
Right.
And we leave Merrick like just holding a lantern in their store, and just like Utter is just kind of disgusted with him because he didn't understand that they didn't need. He's like, why would you go back to get the gun? Why do you need a gun? And which is actually a really good point.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And then Merrick just stands awkwardly in their store, and
Well, but and then Charlie's like, well, we might need guns in order to furnish
To get the gun back.
to get the gun back. Yeah,
but it's just like from a like non-honor violence type
Sure.
of perspective, which
Yeah.
is the most modern perspective. You would just be like,
get a new gun.
who cares?
It's the most modern perspective, but this episode, we'll talk about that later, but takes it to a real far extreme to when he gets the gun home. It's like silly.
Yeah, yeah.
You heard me laugh at it. Anyway,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah.
Keep
when
going.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
keep
Well,
going.
we should remember that. Bullock and Seth, have a conversation. Bullock and Saul have a conversation.
Yes.
About a more honest conversation than we've ever seen them have.
Well, and because Saul is
Doped up.
loaded,
Yeah.
he's doped up on the good shit, and
Keeps screaming cocksucker at him. which
because
we've
he
never
likes
heard.
saying cocksucker.
We've never heard Saul saying
Yeah,
cocksucker at
No.
him.
we've never heard
He
it.
doesn't do that.
Mm-mm.
And,
Now he's screaming cocksucker at him.
And then he has some very direct, like it's fun to see him cuss, and it's also fun to see him tell Bullock. He's like, I'm tired of knowing and you not saying it. And so Bullock is like, yeah, I love her.
Yeah. But then he also is in a roundabout way trying to ask about if Saul can like take care of his affairs once he's gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. It's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, basically he's saying, we didn't come here to start a hardware venture for you to just leave town.
Yeah, within 7 months or whatever the fuck, or 9 months, however long it's been.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it might be a good thing, if Bullock left town with Alma and had a happy life. If they could actually swing that, that would be a good thing. I don't know. So what? He started a hardware venture. He failed at it. He can go off and have fun. That's okay. And
That's okay too.
yeah, I mean, but Saul is very, very adamant, and he's like,
Well, I would understand why he's angry. They invested all this time and this money and all this shit into it, and then he up and leaves within 6 months of them building the place.
yeah,
Right.
And it's like, it's not like hopping in a car and driving, 15 hours to get to Deadwood. It's like that took weeks to get there, and then it took months to get it set up, and then you build a house here, and that took forever. And then once all that's done, oh, by the way, I'm out.
yeah. And he says that the reason that Bullock and Alma would flee camp together would be because of shame,
Yes.
and that it wouldn't end when they leave camp.
Right. Which
I-
it wouldn't.
It wouldn't, no. But again, I don't know if I agree with Seth and Alma's choices in this episode. I feel like, from a modern perspective, get a divorce and
Right.
find someone you love,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
maybe apply for joint custody of the orphan.
Sure.
Right.
It's like,
Whatever.
I mean, with the camp, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
But right, so Bullock leaves and he meets Charlie in the street, and he announces his intention to go back to the gym. I can't believe how focused this episode has less plots than the other one.
It really does. It's probably basically like 2 plots.
Yeah.
Really, it's just Bullock and Al going there doing their stuff, and there's a couple little funny bits that happen there with Farnham and those little side characters and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's pretty focused.
Yeah.
There's a great moment with Charlie where he's walking, and then he very horribly feigns like he's lost his equilibrium and
Yeah.
he falls so that Bullock won't go to the
Immediately
gym.
to the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Charlie Utter is learning by being in Deadwood. Like he learns how to dissemble and lie in order
Yes.
to achieve a good goal.
Yeah.
It's fine. You can see the thought formulating in his head
Yeah.
practically. Like, it's like, oh, I feel so faint. Oh,
I'm starting to feel the vapors coming on. Oh.
But he at least he did it convincingly enough for Bullock's sake, I guess.
Sure.
That Bullock was concerned for his friend, and it was like, well, do you want me to take you back to your place? It's like,
that would be great.
I think that'd be the proper course of events, or whatever he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so they go back, and Charlie continues to sort of try to dissuade Bullock from just, do you have to
And it's one
go
of
back
those-
right now?
And it's one of those moments where
supposed to later.
he takes him and he gets him into the set piece with the shot set up, and then he puts him on that crate, and then they talk for a second, and then all of a sudden you realize that like there's a bench behind Bullock so that they can sit there and then have a conversation. It's like, right when it was time for him to sit down, I was like, oh, there's a bench right behind him. It's almost like it was a set.
Good staging.
Yeah, it's good
they've
staging.
staged this well.
Yeah.
Was the bench? I'm sorry. Was the bench not supposed to be there? Like, really, or?
No, I mean, it's just convenient that he put him down on that box, and then right across from that box is that bench that's perfectly lit for him to sit down
Yeah.
on. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
one of those convenience things that's just funny to note.
Yeah.
They have a long meandering conversation.
Yeah, which it comes back to.
It comes back to when they discuss his brother's death.
Yes.
I don't know where that is, but it's like, let's not forget that because that's important.
Yeah.
Then it goes to Al, Adams, and Dan talking about Bullock in the bar.
Talking about what Yankton's sort of approximate what their thinking is on Bullock, because apparently the muckety mucks in Yankton think that Bullock is a a big deal and a big part of Deadwood, I guess.
Yeah, and this is what I can't. There's too many fucking characters. The new
Adams
the new
is-
road agent. Yeah,
Yeah.
Adams.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying
Yes.
too.
And it's always like with his previous conversation in the other episode, he gets to a point of new information that is very important to Al, and then Al says, "And what else?" And then Adams has to say, "I don't know." And he's very resolute, and it's very upsetting to Al.
Yeah,
And he's like, but he refrains from like trying to hurt him this time.
yeah.
Bullock is connected to some judge in Montana, which is supposedly very important. And Yankton thinks that he's part of the forces behind that judge.
Sure.
So Al is like, maybe it's bad to attack Bullock or kill Bullock.
Well, that's kind of what Adams comes to the conclusion on, and then Al kind of buys into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Dan's giving him looks from across the way. Does he drink with him here? Or is that later?
He drinks I believe it's
He
there.
pours
where-
himself like a triple,
Yes.
and then pours him a single shot,
and then goes,
and downs it all in one.
yeah, because Adams has just come in with his friend Hawkeye, and Hawkeye's late.
Hawkeye's back.
Is that later though? The Hawkeye?
Oh yeah,
late
maybe
stuff?
later in the thing. Then we go to Alma and Mrs. Isringhausen, the tutor, played by Sarah Paulson, and they have a discussion about what she should do.
And then it all just slows down a bit.
Oh yeah, I gotcha. I thought you were doing like Charlie Brown's parents. Like, oh, this
That's
is
kind of that
Charlie-
too.
Yeah, Charlie Brown's parents. But Mrs. Isringhausen is her confidant. And
Yeah.
she's just
Yes.
like, what should I do? I love Bullock a lot. And I don't know if it's here or later, but Mrs. Isringhausen volunteers that perhaps if you ran away, it would be like living on a volcano.
That was right there.
Yeah.
That's the first.
Yeah.
The first beginning of their discussion. Perhaps it'd be like living on a volcano, and
Some people
all-
might enjoy it.
yes, some
Right.
people have done that before, and it's like
And again, this is more of that kind of like tired Victorian kind of stuff, where it's like, oh, that would be so amazing, but it would burn out so quickly, or whatever the fuck. I
Well,
don't know.
it's so interesting to see Sarah Paulson, who is usually like an American Horror Story, which is like very like outrageous, and here she's like shaming Alma for the idea that she might have an adulterous affair.
Yeah.
right.
And and then Alma points out like, well, what if I lived on this volcano and was happy?
Right.
Right.
and that's just not enough for Sarah Paulson,
It's
who's
just
just like
ki-
her tutor.
Yeah, exactly.
Marmish.
Yeah.
In a way. Yeah.
And but she's almost like a junior Alma. She's just dressed to the nines.
Junior
And she's like dark hair, dressed to the nines, very prim.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So then we're at the Chez Ami, which
Yeah.
is where Maddie and Joni Stubbs have set up.
And this is the first time we've seen it, right?
Yeah.
So they go in and
yeah.
it looks like a general store,
Yeah,
kind of. It's like a dusty, shitty general store.
It's cold and there's some furniture on the floor.
And they're like, what the fuck? It's like a barrel and like looks like some mining equipment or something. And they're like, what the fuck is this? And they're like, no, all the shit's in the back.
Right.
So that Cy wouldn't see that I'm building up stuff. I'm like, I hope so. They get back there, there's fabrics and all kinds of things that you would use to turn a general store into a whorehouse.
Yeah.
Is this where EB?
It's later.
Okay, it's later.
Well,
It's
we can't forget all the second halves of these intercutting scenes.
right, because all the intercutting. Yeah.
We could mention that, as you pointed out from the credits, Fiona Dorff, I think, is one of the prostitutes at the Chez Ami, and she is Brad Dorff's daughter, and she is the first of many sons and daughters of actors on the show who will appear and play somewhat awkward roles.
Yeah.
To be appearing with their parents.
Quick question. Shay in
Game of Thrones?
in French.
Yes.
No, Chez. Yeah, I think it means house. I think
Well,
it's
maison is house, but
Oh,
is
you're
Shay also?
maybe it's restaurant. I don't know. We can look it up.
But like ami, so to me or to.
I thought Ami was like friends. I really don't know friends.
Ami-
Oh, ami, like
Yeah.
Let's just see what it means.
Oh, yeah.
Or is that
Mon ami,
Love?
like mon ami, like
Love.
my friend
Chez, according to this, is from French for at the house of.
at the house
love?
of.
I'm pretty sure is
Oh, you're
what
right.
ami
Yeah,
means.
at the house of love. That makes sense.
But
Mon ami means my
house of-
love.
Oh, you're
but
right.
how-
Yeah.
Oh, it does.
Mon ami
it's
is
not
my
my
love.
friend. It's my love.
Yeah, I don't remember what friend is.
Okay.
I did take some French. Not
I
much.
took no French.
Not much,
So it would mean the love house.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
For maison derrière.
Yeah.
Simpsons reference, everybody. Anyway, I like to just just piecemeal try to translate things on my very limited knowledge of foreign languages. Yeah, they're settling into the new whorehouse, the new brothel, the Chez Ami,
Yeah.
and meanwhile,
It's hard to talk about the first part of this episode because a lot of things don't happen
Yeah.
until
Yes.
the second part of the episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maddie does say, nobody try to bolt for freedom.
that's pretty funny. That was funny.
I missed that. Okay.
Just to
Yeah.
verify that these women who seem like very carefree adults, but they're, again, there's a suggestion again, as always throughout the series, that they're being kidnapped
Yeah.
and sold into sexual slavery.
Right.
Though it's never expressly shown for a lot of them.
Well, they don't really have.
Several times it's mentioned in dialogue, though.
Yeah, it's not like they have too many options.
Yeah.
You know, they're stuck in a dead end town where like
If they leave, they'll get
transportation
killed.
is difficult, and
Yeah.
you need money to do anything or to get anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that makes the point. That it pretty much probably is maybe what it would be like.
Right, and an unescorted woman
Mm-hmm.
in this
Not a
place and time is a
Not a thing.
dangerous
Yeah.
thing. Dangerous situation.
Which I guess is another reason why Bullock would marry his brother's husband.
Yeah,
I mean, wife,
brother's husband.
brother's husband.
His brother's husband.
Brother's husband. Was that going to be the twist for
Season 3.
what's his name's character? Who was the magician?
Oh, Ricky Jay.
Oh,
Yeah. That was going to be the twist.
Yeah,
That was going to be Bullock's brother's husband that we didn't know about.
Ricky Jay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Deleted scene.
Deleted scene.
But I mean, in a show that is like so aggressively concerned with like male heterosexuality and like
Mm-hmm.
ideas of like rugged Western masculinity and like literally talking about like the sucking of penises constantly.
Yes.
And
Yes.
like Ricky Jay was a gay male character in addition to the gay female characters, and it is sort of he would give a balance to sort of like some of the cringeworthy aspects of this
Yes.
show in terms
Yeah.
of modern sense, where
Yes.
you have a lot of stuff. Again, like just 10 years later, Deadwood, I don't think would be made. There are just so many aspects of it. And that Lauren in an earlier episode was saying problematic. And you just blanket the entire show with the words problematic.
Yep.
Sure.
But it's I love that Powers Booth comes to town with two underlings who are both like repressed people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And who are suffering trauma.
Yeah.
And really we're kind of robbed because of David Mamet and Milch. We're kind of robbed of Ricky Jay's getting to develop that character. Anyway, that's a tangent. So then we go to Trixie and Saul.
Very touching.
What happens here? I forget.
Well, I do remember she sort of like offers a sexual act.
Yeah.
And then he
he's
says something about, "I'll just take a vigorous handshake."
vigorous hand holding or
Hand-holding,
something
hand-holding,
like,
sorry.
and she gives him her hand and they hold, and it's like, oh, you sweet little puppy,
Yeah.
Saul. Just you really like this Trixie gal, don't you?
Yeah.
And it is very sweet, and Trixie is definitely taken by Saul. And is she working at the gym anymore?
I guess so.
She's not there ever. She was like,
And she was pointing a gun.
she was pointing it's a little later. It's a little
Again,
later,
as with
but
everything in the episode, we got to get to that because I have an opinion about who she's pointing the gun at.
You think she's?
oh,
pointing
that's
at a Bullock.
interesting.
Yes.
Go ahead.
But like, I
They do
think
show it in a shot.
It
and
is
they cut to her.
unclear. She doesn't seem to be punished for leaving the gym so much now.
No.
Now that she said no to Swearengen, she can come and go as she pleases. Though she does still refer to it as like the whorehouse where I work. I know.
Right.
But he gets her to close. She again makes things sexual, and he just wants to hold her hand. And then we have Cy holds forth.
Yeah, that's my really obtuse way of just saying Cy talking to his underlings.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Was that the only time he was in the episode?
Honestly, I think it was. At first, I thought he was talking to himself.
Yes.
Like in a crazy way because.
But then you realize he's talking to a room full of losers.
Yeah, nobody's left. Nobody is left.
He's talking to Con Stapleton.
Yes,
Leon,
loser.
And I think Tess, who is actually Powers. We haven't really met her. She appeared in the first season, but she's Powers Booth's actual daughter, Paris Booth. You can just see her. And there's a fourth person, I forget. Oh, Lila, the girl who was introduced at the end of last season.
Yes.
Okay.
And who we saw who seemed pretty out of it and pale, so she probably has a drug addiction now.
Yes.
After just looking fresh face and happy to be in Deadwood, now she has a drug
Now
addiction.
she can talk.
Yeah.
Well, now she's addicted to drugs.
But all those people are fun people, even if they might be losers.
Losers.
But I was like,
Tess is cool.
yeah.
yeah,
And
sure.
Lila just has a drug addiction.
Yeah.
It
Team of losers.
was just like.
Con Stapleton's a jerk.
It just seems
Leon's
like
a jerk.
the people I feel like he'd normally be talking to is like, Eddie and Joni,
Yeah.
and they're not in the picture with him anymore. So I was really
He's got
wondering.
the C team.
Yeah, because you don't see anyone else at first. It's just him
This
talking.
isn't even a B team. This is a C team.
Right.
Don't knock the belly in. Reputed house of ill repute in Deadwood.
Good way to put it.
He has coins. He's like, to show as a gesture of goodwill. He's like, I'm going to show you. And he just slams these coins in their hands. And they're terrified that he's going to hurt them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even work. Like, he can't even give a speech that inspires them.
He seems unhinged.
Yeah.
Like
He seems like a psychopath.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's lost any sort of charisma or, yeah, I mean.
Yeah. The next scene is Doc Cochran hears something outside.
He's dissecting a brain. Do we know who that is? That body?
It's a gray-headed person. People who don't notice the references to jumps in time. There's even almost says 7 months ago I got the orphan girl, and people say last summer when you were first here. People sometimes think it's Reverend Smith, and like Reverend Smith, and we'll get to what happened to Reverend Smith, but it's not Reverend Smith. It's just somebody who we learned later was a hydrocephalic, a wet brain, whose brain got watery from alcoholism.
Which is why he was so interested in the brain and like preserving pieces of it and like the formaldehyde, I assume, in the jars.
Which is fortuitous because somebody who has the liver the size of a human torso is outside attached to a horse.
From your neck to your crotch or whatever he said.
She's tied herself to her horse so she won't fall
off
of it.
anymore.
Yeah, and she was drunk and outside of town in the last episode.
So that's why we saw that she was like face down on her horse, which was a great reveal too of her lifting her head up and being like, "Oh, that's Jane," and then just bam, back down. And that's the reason why she's able to stay on her horse, because she's tied herself to her horse.
Yeah, and she says, "I've come back to town to die."
Yeah, I've got a mortal disease or whatever the fuck,
Yeah.
and then he goes along with it. And it's like, well, then just give me time to study it so that maybe I can help other people or whatever.
And she has this like soliloquy where she draws out her syllables, so she's like talking about how pitiful she is. I've come back to town to die. Won't you bury me next to where I can see Bill?
Yeah.
And then she like throws in like, yeah, I farted. So what? And it's just it's a very I like it.
It's a very Deadwoodian speech.
And then he examines
Put
her.
a fart in there.
And he tells her that the female breast has lost all its allure.
Yeah.
And he doesn't mind. He just needs to check her chest.
Yes.
And she strangely is like really chipper after that. She's like, I won't do what you say. And it's just she's like a little kid who's like playing.
And he tells her that, in case she needs a place to lay her head, that Charlie Utter has saved her a spot at Utter's Freight, for her in case she happens to stumble back into town, basically. And so
And that's where we cut back to Bullock.
that is where we
and
cut
Utter.
back to, exactly.
They're talking about
his brother, how he died in Mexico and how he never really even knew him.
yeah.
And how his brother like ran away to the Mexican War or also the Comancheros in Texas or something. Anyway, so I guess he was fighting like the Comanches or actually I'm actually not sure, but he died in the army, and Bullock went to meet him. He put it off for years and years, and he finally went to meet him, and he died while he had come to the town and met Martha and the child. So Bullock is crying, over his dead brother and just mourning his loss. And
What if his brother's not dead?
No, he went and got him.
He found his
Didn't-
body?
oh, he did get his
He
brother.
went down to
okay,
Mexico. I
okay.
believe that's what he said.
It
Like
was, it was an empty coffin.
no,
And that's going to be the General Hospital-esque thing for season
you
3.
don't see a body, they're not dead. No, I'm pretty sure he says like he went down
Oh,
to
yeah, no,
Mexico
no.
and found him and brought him
but
back.
He goes to the fort to meet him.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
while he's away from the fort, and he gets killed outside of the fort. But yeah, he goes
Yes.
to go to Mexico, and Charlie Utter, is just trying to agree with him, and says various things.
Anything to get him to not go to the gym.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, so he can't stand near him when he's crying. So he says, "Oh, I just passed wind, so I'm gonna go walk over here."
Don't ever say I'm not a gentleman. Yeah.
It's very sad. And then Jane comes up.
Well, not quite yet.
Oh yeah, sorry. We
The
gotta go back to the
gym.
gym.
Goes back to the gym.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is
and,
when all the shit goes down.
yes.
All right. So first,
Jesus Christ.
Tom Nuttall is talking to Swearengen about.
Pissing in his ear.
And again, we get another comparison of Swearengen to Christ. And he's like, of all his sufferings on the cross, I suppose his busted ribs hurt him the worst.
Yes.
And it's just like, he's just sitting there next to Al, and Al's like, his face is beaten beyond all recognition. And he's like, he can barely stand, and he just has this glass, and he's thinking about like, I wonder what hurt Jesus the most. And it's very funny. But this is when Dan.
Yes, this is when they get into the little drink off there for a second, and then
Hawkeye.
Nightwing, what's his name?
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye
Who is a
back.
guy who was on set, and he's a rodeo guy.
Okay.
And David Milch apparently hung out with a lot of like horse experts and rodeo guys, and ended up casting him in key extra parts. And the king of them, in terms of the biggest role from that, I think, was Hawkeye.
Okay.
So Hawkeye, not an actor, I think he just is somebody who's really good at riding horses.
Okay, you can kind of tell. But he comes in. He was sent out on something to do something,
And he apparently was hanging out with some girl named Kate,
and just didn't really do what he was supposed to do.
and he didn't come in. He got lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he just comes back in, and then what's his name?
Dan?
Silas
Silas Adams.
Adams comes up to him and is like, don't do that again. and then he walks back over to the bar, and then Al's like, oh yeah, real. What does he say?
Nice rebuke.
Severe reprimand.
Severe reprimand.
Ooh.
Which it was a fine reprimand. I mean, it was okay.
Yeah, but what would Al would he was bust him upside the head and been like, what the fuck are you doing?
But Al has severe rage issues.
That's true.
Right? I mean,
But that's how you keep the idiots in line.
sure, but
You Three Stooges them.
yeah.
Hit him with a mallet or something.
And then
Hawkeye sits down and talks up a lady of the night.
Yeah.
And Dan,
Takes off his
what
hat.
sets off Dan?
he takes off his hat. He knows that he can't hurt. Like he knows he can't hurt Adams.
That's
But
right.
he knows that Hawkeye is done wrong.
Yes, and he's one step removed, so fuck him. He's free game.
Yeah.
And that
So he goes over there, tells her to beat it, and he starts wiping the table down, but pushing everything towards him.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then that's when he fucking gets his ass up and
Well-
just starts wailing on
Well,
him.
Dan.
Oh,
Dan
they
is
did- they
like
did that
you,
cool little-
you think you're so clever, It's like I bet when you and feller Adams,
yeah,
or
make a homosexual
greasing your
joke.
poles,
Yeah.
and between that y'all are just yucking it up with your funnies or whatever.
Yeah, so damn funny, me. And then they get into this weird thing where
and-
like he tries to charge Dan.
Yeah, Hawkeye says we laugh about you,
And
and
then Dan
charges
just,
him.
of course, this is the move. You just take him, and he's huge, so he just flips his ass over.
And then he's unconscious.
It just slams him on the floor, and then just
Starts wailing
and then
on
just
him.
Goes to a Bullock there and just starts beating the shit out of his face.
And then good old patchwork jacket, Slippery Dan, has to chime in
Yep.
with
That's
and-
one
well-
country
well-
ass kicking.
But before that, Silas looks and then looks at Al.
Yes.
And Al's like,
don't do
and
it.
then he looks back at him again and looks back and he's like, no.
No.
And
Yeah.
then he's fuming. He wants to do something, and that's when Slippery Dan or Dumbass Dan or whatever his name is.
Slippery Dan. Yeah. What was the comment? That's
He
one.
says that's one country.
That's
either
one country ass
kicking-
whooping.
Yeah, asking, but it's like he may say countrified, or I guess he would say country. I don't know, country ass whooping.
And then that's it. He fucking runs over there and just like Does it very quickly happen?
It happens
Yes.
pretty quick.
Where he just basically slams him into that wall and just impales him with
On
those
antlers.
fucking antlers.
Yeah.
And then Tom Nuttall has that amazing one-liner. What does he say?
He says he just 12-pointed Slippery Dan.
Yep. Yep.
Which again, what's so strange about the scene is it's already interesting that Dan would be like, okay, I need to take my violent frustration out on Adam's underling. But then it's like, Adams is like, well, I need to take my violent frustrations out on a random dude who I don't know who just said a phrase. And I need to kill him by impaling him.
Well, I don't think he meant to impale. I think he was just going to hit him into the wall, and then the antlers happened to be there.
Yeah. And
He was going to give him a countrified ass whooping too, but then it turned
I
into
don't
a
know.
countrified Gorin.
I feel like
murder.
death is really acceptable in the gym. It's like if you go there,
Oh,
you're
it's
like,
super acceptable.
There's a 50% chance you will be turned into pig food.
Right.
And it's just like, and the idea that Tom Nuttall, he's surprised, but he also has a term for 12 pointing. I guess that's a term for any time deers impale people.
Yes.
But it's like, this is just such a common occurrence. That it's just like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought that Slippery Dan got 12 pointed.
They need to raise them damn antlers up about 4 feet, so people don't get fucking impaled
Also,
on them.
how are the antlers that sharp? Like.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I guess they're sharp in the first place, but I mean, like, the town is full of antlers, piles of antlers everywhere. But seriously, I really, that's a very funny scene.
It's ridiculous. And then finally, Al pulls the double barrel,
Oh, yeah.
points it at his head
At Dan.
at Dan,
It's like, all right.
and Dan fucking can't believe it. And he gets up and me, and then he's and then he retreats away, and it's just like
sob in his room.
sob in his room. Like we'll get to that.
Well, it's a
later.
betrayal.
Yeah, it is.
He loves Al. He does. He kills for Al.
We'll get to it.
But
Because I want to talk to that.
But Al looks pretty freaking scary with his extremely damaged face and extremely threatening manner.
It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
horrifying face.
And there's no compassion in that face.
No, none to find. Even more.
Jane stumbles up to utter freight where Charlie and Bullock are talking, and
Yeah.
what happens next?
Well, I guess Jane tells a story about a Finnish fellow she met who thought she was a man.
Yeah.
And it falls on literally deaf ears.
Nobody's laughing.
Charlie pretends like he didn't hear it.
Well, I mean, maybe he didn't because she whispered the punchline.
Maybe.
That is true.
Maybe, but I kind of feel like he wouldn't acknowledge it either way.
Yeah.
He didn't say, "What was that?"
No.
He
See, that's what makes me think that he heard it and doesn't want to hear it repeated.
Yeah.
Well, but this is all her. It's almost like her coarseness drives Bullock to remember his honor.
Yeah.
And his obsession with his gun / dick.
Well,
and all this
I'm
shit.
outta here.
Yeah. It's like he can't handle that somebody would think that Jane was a man.
Yeah.
And that wants to suck her cock.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, I forget what does he say anyways? He just rises.
I think he might have.
And and then they're like, okay, we'll get the guns. And then Charlie is just openly exasperated. He gives up the ghost of his ruse.
Yeah.
He's just like, I was trying to prevent you from roiling the fucking waters. And she's like, why don't you, wake up your night watchman, get me a gun.
Yeah, exactly. So we gotta go back them. Where the fuck are the guns?
And it's a really good mixture of this sad stuff that Bullock's been saying about his brother, and then just really funny shit. Where
Yeah.
it's like he's, and again, from modern perspective, Bullock is really stupid. Just give up your damn gun. If the mafia stole my gun,
Yeah.
I would let the mafia have my gun.
Right.
I don't care. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's just and again, it's a traditional sheriff
But
western.
it's principle, man. And you know how principled fucking Bullock is.
Yeah. And then somewhere around this time, I think we get the filthy outpost of Brook Farm.
That was a discussion between Alma and the tutor. I wrote that down because I was like, I don't know that name,
I'm not
Brook
familiar with
Farm.
It sounds like a.
I looked it up briefly. It was like in a utopian community. I don't think it lasted because utopian community. But I couldn't quite figure out what
I think
the context.
it was a commune. They had an ideal, and so
yes.
they would all it would take a village to raise the orphan girl, and she was like,
That's
she was
right.
basically-
Yes.
What was interesting was Mrs. Isringhausen was saying that she had a conversation with Bullock and that that he wanted to leave Sophia in the camp. That he didn't exactly say that, but that's what she gained from it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first saw this episode, I was a little confused. I was like, wait, did I miss a scene? Like, where did she see Bullock to, imply that he wanted Alma to leave Sophia in the camp?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, how did that strike you guys? Like, did you follow that at all? Or did it, because it's like, it's so, their language is a little impenetrable.
Yeah.
I mean, I followed that she said that, and then I was like,
did he say that?
I know. I mean, I knew for a fact that they hadn't had a scene together, so because I would have remembered that.
Except
at
for the
least.
beginning, just the beginning scene, but
nothing that's exchanged really. And so I was like, I don't know. I mean, she does seem like there's one of two ways to take that character.
Mm-hmm.
Either she's just really uptight and proper and doesn't want, to do anything untowards or whatever, or she's like doing something sinister here and like making shit up.
Mm-hmm.
Like why would she say that about Bullock or whatever?
Right.
So I don't know.
But, like, when I first saw this episode, that was a fault. I was like, I was denied Bullock and Alma's separation, like a reason for that separation, because they didn't ever really get to make a choice, because we don't have complete information on how. We don't know if Bullock, if Mrs. Ringhound got that information from Bullock.
Right.
But yeah. Then we have Woo's pigs.
Yeah, brief scene. Doc has fed his hydrocephalic, or not hydrocephalic, but
His
encephaly,
corpse.
the alcoholic wet brain corpse that he had been dissecting and
And
preserving
much like
the brains.
was it the first episode where he's thrown a body into the pigs, or was it the second episode?
The first
or something?
episode of the first season, yeah.
Yeah. And in that time period, that all I had to go on was just the fact that he's there watching a dude getting eaten by hogs, and he's like, and has like a happy expression on his
Yeah,
face.
he has
while
a smile.
and he does it again here, and you're like, oh, that's just how he is, huh?
Yeah. Well, we talked about how it's out of character in the first episode for him to smile, like it won't matter to Woo's pigs. And here he's trying to explain to Woo the concept of hydrocephaly, and he's like, Woo is just like, you guys are evil.
But it really
turns his back.
But really, is it that he just once somebody's dead, he's just like, I mean, they're just parts.
Yeah.
He's like, who cares? And so it's just kind of like a novelty to watch the pigs eat something.
It's watching an amateur autopsy almost. It's like, oh, look,
And he's
okay,
just
that's
watching
one way to pull it apart.
Yeah, and I guess
Take it apart.
Then he can tell if someone's been gnawed on by pigs. I don't know.
I don't know, but I would agree if Woo's discussed. Like, I mean,
yeah,
This is fucking disgusting.
Woo is right that Woo is the corpse disposal for all these people in this community.
Yes.
And like he gets to see all the murders.
Yes.
So his
Right.
viewpoint of these people must be.
They're monsters.
And they are monsters.
Yeah.
They kill everybody.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Adams comes over.
Yes, with
with
Slippery Dan.
Dan's body.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
Tries
he's
to
having
go
a tough
up.
day.
And then Wu stops him and just
$5.
$5. And he's he tries to just go buy him, right? And then he's like,
Well, he nods,
$5.
like, okay, $5,
Yeah.
and then like, nope,
like now,
Up front.
like right now,
yeah.
because I don't trust you motherfuckers to give me the money later.
Mm-hmm.
And
The extent of that scene, right?
yeah, pretty much.
That's it. That's all. That's
Yeah.
it.
And then we have Al in Dan's room, and Dan is crying into the mirror.
God, it's such a good scene. It's so great how Dan just feels so betrayed by what's happened. He's like, what does he say? Something about get Adams to do it or something. Oh, just because when he comes in, he's basically just like, whatever it is, get Adams to do it or something.
Or to deliver the message to me.
Deliver the message. And basically, Al's line through this whole thing is like, why are you so butthurt about
Yeah.
this?
And he sells him on it with, if you or me had 12-pointed Slippery Dan, all of the horn, Adams did not really 12-point. He only got 2 tines.
Yes.
All the tines of the antlers would have gone through his chest.
Right, because
Right.
we're
that strong.
because we're big, strong men.
And then he leads from that to like whatever comes in the future, and he says it much more flowery than this. But whatever comes in the future, we'll face it together, like always.
And they spit in hands and shake hands.
And Dan almost goes in for the hug, but in pulling him closer to him, Al's back is wrenched a little.
Yes.
And he groans, and then they pull away. So again, these two guys, they're so, a lot less murders if they were able to hug would be, and then, but they can't.
Yeah.
And then Al asks Dan to send Dolly up.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And after he feels like he's because he also makes a point about why would you point the gun at me?
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And his reasoning is very circular. He's like,
Yeah.
I convinced you that I would, so I wouldn't have to, or something. Which is just like
that wasn't the selling point. The selling point was we're big man, we're big
men.
strong men, and if we had done that, then we would have fucking gone all the way through them. And me and you, we're gonna be together forever. It's gonna be great. And
Not
he's like,
Adams.
fuck
me.
that guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay, that's it. That's all I needed.
And it's just Dan is like other people have compared him to a big child.
Yes.
like
Yeah.
he's
I mean, he
very
is.
loyal, and he just does whatever Al says, and he gets really upset about it.
Yes.
He always does it
Yeah.
with tears.
But he's not like, we said this several times before, but like he's not stupid.
No,
It's just that he is a child.
yeah. He exhibits a little bit of Johnny's behavior, and that Johnny usually repeats whatever everyone says, like as if it was his own thought or in a similar fashion.
Yeah.
And Dan goes downstairs and talks to Johnny and says the thing about the tines, like the number of times it would show through Slippery Dan's chest if he or Al had done it.
Right.
Uh,
Almost like he just had to talk with his dad, and then he's going and telling all his friends in the schoolyard, like, yeah, me or my dad would have done it. Boom, right through, all the way through.
Yeah, and again, it's again, the actual Dan Doherty and Johnny Burns. Again, the only references we have to them that are official, like the ones that stick out, are these are dangerous men. Don't fuck with them; they'll kill you. And Deadwood is what Milch is saying is, that's not the whole story. They're actually lovable dudes. But we don't have the full story. Either way, we don't know what their actual day to day was like. So
Doesn't matter. It's a story.
yeah,
Yes.
it is a story. Let's see. We have Al and Dolly. What was Al and Dolly?
With the prostate.
Is that where the prostate?
God.
Okay.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Stimulation. Of the
prostate. Yeah, and this would presumably have to do with his problems with his peeing. And I think we see Johnny look up and we hear Al say Jesus Christ, and Johnny is like, Dolly must have his thumb in his ass again.
It's always like it's one of two things.
Yeah.
It's like there's only two reasons why he screams. What does he scream?
Jesus Christ?
Jesus Christ or something. I don't remember. And then it's like either killing somebody or Dolly's got his thumb in his ass again or something. And then that's when we cut in to there, and he's like bent over his desk with his pajamas on,
flap down,
and his ass flapped down, and she presumably has her thumb. I mean, because all we see is this, just ankle. I mean, knee. I mean, fuck. Wrist obscured.
We see the elbow action going on.
Yeah. And does anybody remember all of the delicious dialogue that happens?
Well, basically, he's like, if I was trying to get away, why would you pursue me?
I mean, that's the best part, though. Is like he's trying. He's like, she shoves it in there as hard as she can, and then he's like, oh, and he's trying to make his way down the side of the table, and then
she's following along.
She just keeps going. She just keeps pushing it forward, and then finally he's able to stop and just be like, "Why would you do that? Why would you follow me when I'm obviously trying to get away and get your thumb out of my ass?"
And Dolly is such a her casting is really good as just someone who seems very young and just does whatever he says without thinking about it.
Yes,
and
which is probably one of the reasons why she would continue to follow him
Yeah.
with the thumb up his ass.
Yeah, but it's also a reversal of the scene where she was going down on him like last season, and this he's the one who's basically being kind of prostrate.
But then it happens again here.
Yeah, Oh yeah. She does go on down on him again immediately after he talks about rivers of blood possibly flowing out of that. Again, not the most
because I guess he feels like there's something coming out. That's what's weird.
Yeah.
Is he feels like something's coming out, and he's like, "There's rivers of blood coming out of my asshole," and she's like, "No, there's nothing," and he's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. But it's unique that there's a scene where he has so much power over him.
Yes.
For her, and then this scene at least reverses that. You could at least say that the show is at least throwing her a bone of, like, in some way dominating Al
And
Swearengen
then he throws her a bone. Oh, am I right? Oh,
Wow.
But he returns to immediately asking for a blowjob. at the end
Yes,
of it.
that's
Which leads almost immediately into
Bullock.
Oh,
the
it's
gang.
happened concurrently.
yeah.
Well,
Bullock.
And his weird face, that's his giant eye, and then the one that's like barely open, and he's like reciting this really long monologue.
Yeah, he's thinking out loud to himself while receiving this blowjob, and it's like he's talking to Dolly, but Dolly has no idea what the fuck he's talking about, presumably. So like he's really just thinking out loud. Meanwhile, Bullock and Calamity Jane and Charlie Utter,
and Saul.
well, not yet,
shows up,
but about to show up. Trixie sees them heading
and
towards
it's like
the
that
gym.
selfish son of a bitch,
Yeah.
and goes and goes and gets Saul, and he's like, "Okay, get me up," and it's like, "You're fucking worthless." So it's like, and she even hands him a gun at one point, a little bit later, a little bit, just a couple minutes later, and is like, gonna give him the rifle, and is like, no, and she gives him the 6-shooter, and is like, you shoot it, you're probably gonna break your fucking ribs or whatever, but like you can at least get one shot off. It's like, and then she takes the rifle and
Yeah. And I guess, can we talk about Trixie pointing the gun, and we don't
Yes,
see who she's
go ahead.
pointing at it? She's
Pointing that rifle.
She's pointing
sure.
it, and I think on this viewing, I took it to be she's pointing it at Bullock.
I mean, the evidence of the episode backs you up.
Yeah, because she really hates Bullock. She
Yeah.
calls him a self-deluding motherfucker as she walks out of the room.
Right. Which she has every reason to say.
Yeah, and because he basically got her boyfriend shot.
Yep.
And almost killed her boss, who she presumably has some sort of affinity for.
Yes.
Still, yeah.
And so we just have this weird out of reference shot where she points a rifle at all the groups.
And then it cuts to Bullock.
It does cut to
immediately.
Bullock.
It's not a close up, but it's a single shot on Bullock.
Yeah. But it's not a point of view necessarily. But
No,
it
it's
is.
but it's
Yep.
editing.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it
we
would-
never see her in relations to the actual group.
No.
No, we
So
don't
never-
see down the barrel,
No.
who she's aiming at.
Presumably, she could be pointing at Al.
It's possible.
Anyway, Al basically has a epiphany, a vision,
Yep.
while having this blowjob, and he basically says that Bullock sets a higher standard for himself and longs for death.
Yes.
And he also begins to be threatened by Bullock that he has to come out in 5 minutes while he's coming.
Yeah.
And he basically is like yelling at. There's one thing where you don't see him yell at, but it cuts back to Bullock, and you just hear him say, "Shut the fuck up!"
Yeah.
And it's a great little. It's just hilarious that he would be dealing with, like, thinking about all the angles, receiving head, and then also negotiating with an armed mob. It's really weird. So then he goes out and he's in his pajamas. And he says,
Wait.
"Yeah,
That's all he says.
Yeah.
He goes
and
back in.
Goes back in. And that's repeated, that word, with Trixie to Saul. Just wait. They didn't, I don't think they were armed yet. And like she went back in and got like a rifle
Yeah.
and a gun.
Yeah.
There's another case of someone mimicking Al Swearengen and learning from him." It says here, I guess we return back to the brothel.
Well, that's this is jumping ahead
Okay.
just a little bit. So this is jumping ahead of basically that entire scene. So wait for that, I guess. But Al goes downstairs, gets dressed and all that. Dan tries to hand him first a knife, and Al says no,
Leaves it off.
and then tries to hand him a gun. Again, like no.
Tries to hand him like a shotgun first.
Was it a
Right?
shotgun?
And then he tries to hand him a pistol.
Yeah, maybe.
And also a knife, probably.
Right. I think
Yeah.
he offers him 3 different things, and he's finally just like, no, I'm not going out there with anything.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, and Al's, but Bal's has worked out the situation in his head. He's solved it in his head in a way that
Right.
makes sense for him.
yeah.
Like he's basically, he called it public humiliation earlier, but he's really he needs Bullock, and in ways maybe Al is like failing in rationalizing his failure before Bullock. Like he's looking bad. In some way. I don't think he's really looking bad. He's actually behaving like a human.
Yeah, he actually comes across a lot better than Bullock does, because
Yeah.
Bullock
Yes.
is acting like a pig-headed
A
idiot.
hothead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like he has to. He's like he has to work out all the angles in his head and be like a super awesome, smart guy to enable himself to feel good about the interaction. If that makes sense.
Yes. Well, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that the gym is still standing.
Yeah.
And if God forbid Al were to die, Jim goes away. The dream dies.
The dream dies. I wish. Oh man, the gym is. Poor Al. Al again, small business owner. He does what it takes to make his business succeed.
It's the crown jewel of capitalism, the gym.
But again, like you said, you really are with him this episode.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, he's again murderous bastard in real life and fiction, but he's just.
It doesn't hurt that Bullock's plot line isn't as fun.
No.
Sure.
No, but Bullock is genuinely confused and.
Yeah.
And it feels like he's trying to solve this dilemma he has
Yeah.
by just going and getting himself murdered by
Yes,
trying
exactly.
to get his gun and his badge
Yeah.
back. Like, won't have to worry about the hard decisions of my actual wife versus my true love if I am honor bound to walk into the lion's den and demand my sidearm and my sheriff's badge from this crazy person.
But I mean,
90
90% of it is just that he learned about the politics behind what was going on with that sheriff in Montana. I'm pretty
Right.
sure that's like most of
Is
it.
what Al's
That's what Al's
calculus
calculating
is.
in his
Yeah.
head, and he's like, I can't just shoot him down cold blood in the street. It's like, that uses up all my political capital. It's like-
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Like, then Al's not so likable.
yeah.
But he does. He brings it out and I don't know, just.
It's the
That's
best
it.
way.
It's dissolved.
It's the best
We're,
way to
we're,
watch.
we're not there yet. We're not
No,
there
we
yet.
are. We are.
Oh, we are. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all
it's the best
this
play.
all this
Oh, that's
comes later.
after? Oh my
All this
gosh.
comes after. Yes,
That was such a big deal, though. Okay.
I promise. Yeah.
I mean, that's the climax of the episode, but yeah, there was a
Yes,
couple of things
there's a few
afterwards.
well,
things
then we
after.
should talk about what Al says, and we said it's a self-help speech directed
Yeah.
at Bullock, uniquely suited for Bullock to stay in the camp.
Yes.
yes.
Which again, this show can't afford to leave the camp that much, so it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, one of the interesting things he does, in addition to making a reference to being under someone's thumb, and then making a reference to when Dolly throws Bullock's hat, he has a wonderful look when Bullock asks, "Do you have my hat?" Which is just like the stupidest thing.
After all that,
Yeah.
It's like a child asking for his baseball cap that he left in someone's car, and then you cut to Al and his eyebrow goes up like this, and he's just like, "I am so fucking annoyed." It's a hilarious. look.
But he handles it well, composes himself,
Dolly.
and it's like, would it
be too degrading.
would it
if
be
she threw it
too
down?
degrading if she were to toss it down or whatever? And no, that's fine.
And she throws it perfectly in Bullock's hand, and he turns to Bullock with this like sly, debaucherous air, and he's like, "If only she was as good as aim with her thumb." So like, how would Bullock know that Dolly just had her thumb?
He doesn't.
No,
it's just Al talking to himself.
Yeah.
But it has this vague air of like, and Bullock is mildly.
Yeah, like what?
He does look a little taken aback by
But-
what does that even? Wait a minute.
But that's Al tactics. It's like
Yeah.
it's like you use these weird things that nobody else would understand what you're talking about. But I mean, it does make sense. It's just you have to have the context. But it also makes you seem like you have some information that they don't have, even
Right.
if it's just that you get someone to stick a thumb in your ass so that you could pass blood out of your asshole.
right.
Yeah. And also, a really wonderful thing that he does is he mentions a speech by Reverend Smith. He says,
Yes.
Reverend Smith said, "You lift the camp up." And there we learn what happened to Reverend
Yeah,
Smith.
he also gets really big into like what happens here, and he made up this story about that he.
Well, no, but it is true in terms of history.
Sure.
Reverend Smith was found murdered on the road. And some people said it was Indians, and some people said it was people in the camp who disliked him.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think Indians were a possible culprit, but I think people thought that he was just murdered by people. Anyway,
But
Reverend Smith was found on the road dead.
But according to this show, it's
That also happened in the show.
what?
In the show, I think we're meant to believe that Al placed the Reverend.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he killed him. It's
Yeah.
like we saw he murdered him, and then he put him over there and blamed
Yeah.
the Indians.
Yeah. And so it's like he and Doc Cochran eventually got together enough to place the body in the road and then not feed him to pigs and give him like a kind of a martyr's death
Yeah.
or something. And it's almost nice that Al is still thinking about Reverend Smith 7 months later,
Right.
and just giving him a proper send off and
Yeah.
tying him into a conversation, but really just for his own. And,
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can go to Reverend Smith's grave in Deadwood, and hopefully we will. And
Yes.
as he was a real preacher, and he also really got in trouble for preaching in saloons and various stuff. But I think this show he probably was not murdered by Al Swearengen. I don't know if he even had a tumor that caused him epileptic seizures.
It's just more fun for the show.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a nice wrap up, sort of. It's kind of tying history to what happened in the show. And then we get the brothel setting again.
Get to the brothel setting in. We have Smeagol, hiding out on the we have Gollum,
Fucking cartoon
yeah.
character lurking about near the barrels.
E.B. Farnham
outside.
just like hunched over and sneaking a peek into the brothel.
Because his one charge for the episode
Right.
was to check on the whores.
The new whores in town. Yep.
And Maddie calls him a rodent-faced creature.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, and then Joni's like, it's just the mayor.
Just the mayor.
And then the people in the Chez inform the guy who helped move their stuff that they're too expensive for hoople heads.
Right.
And $2 won't get you anything at the Chez. They have to go to the gym.
It won't get you anything but maybe a whiff
Yes.
of some snatch or whatever. I don't
As
know.
you pass
I
by
forgot
or
they said
whatever.
something. And
Yeah.
then
That's what he's paid in addition to his $2.
Yeah.
And his reaction is a very strange, again, something that you feel would only be said in Deadwood. His reaction to having someone lift their skirts and wave them at him is, "Mother, it's the ocean."
Is that what he
That's what
said?
he says. He skips out of the building and says, "Mother, it's the ocean." And again,
It just
I would
sounded like
say-
hooting and hollering to me. I guess.
No, he says, "Mother, it's the ocean," which
What
again,
the fuck?
it's like the show is like a lot of waxing poetic about very shitting, having sex, various bodily ailments, and it's like an obsessive detail. And and then there's this weird poetic obsession where it's just like, I sure it's the ocean, whether it's the ocean.
All right.
But again, it's also poetry. It is kind of poetry. It's really funny.
And Merrick is sort of like fishing first, I think, from Bullock for like some kind of true accounting of
what
what's
just happened.
Bullock's having none of it, and
As usual.
Yeah, is like wants no
and
part
then
in
Merrick starts lamenting the free press and all this
it. Yeah,
other
the
shit.
First Amendment.
But we're
and,
talking about American.
But
Al.
yeah,
American Al.
but first he's going to Bullock.
Look, okay.
Gets
Yeah,
nothing
they
for
talk
Bullock.
outside. They're talking towards the
Okay,
camera.
But then he goes to Al.
Right.
And Al gives him something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then it starts cross-cutting. Because he's going back
Yes.
home, and then Merrick
Bullock
leaves
is
to go
going
talk
back to his
Al.
Yeah,
wife.
Merrick says you're reducing the First Amendment to something hollow, and Bullock says thank you.
Yeah.
So it's like if Bullock represents the police, he's
Right.
saying, I'm really not interested in you learning what's going on. I don't respect the First Amendment. And then he goes to Al, and Al represents commerce or business.
Yeah.
And Al is like, sure. I think it looks like Merrick pays Al.
Yeah.
Al is like putting some money in a box. It looks
Yeah.
like way too much, but apparently he's like. He says, "You're tenacious, Merrick." So I assume maybe Merrick paid him, and then he starts to. Merrick objects to what he says, but he says it has to be within the standards of decency.
Yeah.
and then Al says that that's unrealistic for truth.
Yeah.
But like I feel like it's a little bit, I don't know, Merrick. Not all newspapermen are such, uptight about the standards of decency. They would maybe much more want the truth out there.
Right.
But the show is implying that Merrick's obsession with social norms and standards of decency prevent him from writing down the truth, which Al specifies as he lay at cunt's doorstep, is what he says. And Merrick is like just not there with that.
Yeah.
And they have this long talk, and then Al starts dictating the article that will
verbatim what's going to happen, and it starts cutting back and forth.
And just as Bullock's letter ended the last episode, this episode ends with Al's statement.
Yeah.
As Seth goes home for the first time ever.
He steps across the threshold
Yes.
of his married life.
Right. He's walking away from the house in the end of the last episode with the dubbed, his letter, basically, and in a similar way, he's coming back to the house.
His very technical letter, and this
Yes.
time it's this very fabricated thing that Swearengen has made up, kind of.
Bullock's letter was full of shit because it was like,
Right.
I'm preparing this house for you.
Yes.
Was while he was being pictured against going to Alma and hugging her.
Yes.
And like, this is like, Swearengen is saying, newspapers corrupt. They don't have the real story.
Right.
It's more important that that I go for my my commercial goals.
Exactly.
My spin.
Exactly.
Which is like again that's. But anyway, I forget what I was gonna say. Oh, Alma closes the curtain as Seth passes, and then what does Al say? He has this kind of like sentimental thing about how Bullock represents like the citizenry, or like he talks about it from like the perspective of the town, where this villain Al Swearengen has been defeated, and everyone's safe in Deadwood, and then he adds in at the very end, like people can go to the gym
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
For cards, women, and liquor. All hours, 7 days a week.
And then the show closes on.
So he's realized now that he's going to be the villain.
Yeah.
In the story.
Yeah.
That's being written about Deadwood itself.
Yeah.
And so he's leaning into it, and maybe he's going to start relishing it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And he's the establishment in terms of like the vices that so many people want in this town. So many guys want to play cards and gamble and have the ladies of the night and drink the booze, and he's kind of got it for him, and that's almost what he's selling at the end of it.
I mean, he's always wanted people to be scared of him, but I think he's always also portrayed this air of he's a pillar of the community and stuff.
Oh, right.
And so now I guess I'm saying maybe he'll start going away from that and almost going like the Vince McMahon route and being like, it's like, oh, I'm the villain now. I'm the villain. I'll play up that, and I'll play up that he's the big hero,
right?
That we all need, and that'll kind of get its way out to Yankton or whatever.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that his final look is one of like, maybe he's another one of his patented weird frozen staring off into space
that happens so much. Yes.
He's like, poor Al. It's like poor Al Swearengen going to sleep. What the hell is he thinking? How frozen and numb he must be.
Again, also like the Grinch. Once again,
yeah.
He has a lot of parallels with the Grinch.
He gets compared to Jesus and Satan a lot. I think we missed a Satan comparison last episode, where our last episode of last season, where Brad Dourif is talking to God, and he's like, "Who's that at the door? Your competition?" More Satan now, and also Bullock and wife have a discussion about removing the bundling board from their bed.
The bundling board, which you explained to us.
Yes, because I didn't know what that was.
From what I understand, and I haven't looked it up, and this actually came up on another, like a very good podcast about Deadwood called Hoopleheads, which is another good name. But anyways, it's also
ours is the best.
Ours is the best. But Hoopleheads is an excellent podcast.
I mean, next to the alternate name for this podcast, which is
Oh, the ambulators.
The ambulators.
I think the ambulators will be our second run through.
That is good.
But anyway, many discussions of Deadwood come up against this concept of bundling board, and you can find
That's
it by
exactly
Google.
what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a big board that
And
goes in between, two
It
people.
separates the two people in bed, so they may not have sexual
And so
congress.
The man and the woman.
So she took it off.
I,
The main thing that I want to talk about that I mentioned earlier
Yeah.
was that he's made such a big deal about getting this gun and this badge.
And
it's
also-
mainly to show the kid.
The boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
who just innocently asked about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I
He
guess
put-
because he wants to establish that he believes in these principles or
Yes.
whatever that the
Of
kid
violence.
doesn't. That the kid probably doesn't
State-sanctioned
fucking know.
violence.
And so he very lovingly and strange. Well, first he makes a point of telling her
That-
make
yeah.
sure that the boy sees that I got this, and it's like okay, but then not just that, he puts it in a little basket.
In the basket, I believe that Alma brought the stuff
You're right.
in, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then puts it right next to his bed.
But then it's
Like
a
a
little too
present.
close to his hand, so he pulls it a little away from his hand. It's like, there was awareness that the kid should not be sleeping next to a loaded gun.
But just leaves it right there for him.
Yeah.
And it's like,
He wanted him to see, he says.
yes.
Just wake up like Christmas morn.
the sheriff's back in town. My paw.
Mr. Bullock.
Mr. Bullock.
Apparently, bundling boards were for young people to sleep in the same bed and have that experience without assuring them that they would not fuck. So it's like it's for younger couples to sleep in the same bed and bond, but not sleep together, literally or figuratively.
But I just thought that was so weird that he was so proud to show that
Oh
kid
God,
that gun
yeah,
and the badge.
yeah.
I mean, again, here's my penis. I retrieved my penis.
Yeah,
son.
yeah.
My penis is back.
My penis is back in town.
My detachable penis has been reattached.
Don't worry, I can use this to fuck your mother. Everything's fine.
The board has been removed by her. She removed the barrier.
And again, it's like
Yeah.
at
All
least
systems are go.
at least Al, you could say that Al is honest.
Yes.
While
Sure.
Bullock is deluded.
Yes,
Yeah.
very diluted.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Al is also, I feel like his conversation with Merrick, I feel like Merrick is too weak for representing the press.
Yes.
Like the press would, be a little. There are also versions of the press that aren't nerds and that would be
Right.
more interested in dirt.
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Digging,
Yeah.
which is Merrick feigns an interest in it and then doesn't actually do any real digging.
Yeah. He gets upset that Al cusses, I guess, basically.
That's it.
Right?
It's
It's
like,
just so.
But
so-
they all fucking cuss
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah.
Cocksucker this, motherfucker that, god damn it this, god damn it that.
Yeah. I don't. Merrick lives in a rarefied world.
That's true.
But people are selective in Deadwood. About what they're offended by.
Yep.
What are the social mores?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's it.
That is it.
Any takeaways?
Is this like the, in terms of actual chronological time, is this like the shortest episode?
Yeah.
It's a single night.
Yeah.
I mean, it took off like right from where last episode ended with like him escorting his wife and adoptive child, his brother's wife and child to the house, then walking back out, and then like this episode starts off and going back to Alma. This episode picks up from there and ends with the sunrise.
I'd also say this episode has the least going on in pretty much anything that we've watched so far.
It's fairly cerebral, aside from like the burst of violence that happens in the gym with Adams and Slippery Slippery Dan and not Slippery Dan and Hawkeye. It's all quite a bit of talking and like what are we gonna do? What are you gonna do?
But it's fairly intense.
Yeah.
No, it is. Yeah, for sure.
But it's just strange because the show usually has about 20 fucking things going on.
Right.
And then your brain hurts at the end of it. And this one was a lot more straightforward.
And this really kind of wow, it really kind of finished hammering in the nail of the title of the what
The
was
lie
it?
agreed upon.
The lie agreed upon. So that lie agreed upon is finalized with Al and Bullock, basically.
Yep.
At the very end,
Uh-huh.
and then also with the board gets removed from the bed, so it's like I guess Bullock and wife really are Bullock and wife.
Right. That'll be a good buddy cop show.
Bullock and wife,
Bullock and wife.
McBullock and wife.
McBullock and wife.
I'm really interested to see because I'm now in completely new territory. I haven't seen. I don't think I've seen any of this. What happens with Alma and Bullock, and what happens with? Is he really going to go all in on this my actual wife thing?
Hell no.
I feel like he's so much of a goddamn Boy Scout that he's going to try.
He's so much of a Boy Scout, but something is going to happen that's gonna free him up to make a decision.
Well, I mean, he's clearly in love with Alma, like.
And maybe
not even just clearly, but like.
And I mean,
lustful.
Like like any good TV show, I'm sure he's going to find reasons to start appreciating. What's her name besides Miss Bullock?
What is her name? That's a good question.
Martha Bullock.
That's right, Martha.
Martha.
God damn.
He'll find reasons to start liking Martha, and then it will become an actual hard choice between the two of them because conflict.
He's gonna bond with the boy.
Yeah, of course. And then it'll be like, so then you have a choice between two families that you love both equally. That's a lot harder to make than just run away with the person I've been fucking for 7 months.
Right. Or this is, Ben's just sitting here like,
Oh,
y'all
you just wait.
speculate all you want. I know.
I want to look like a dumbass later, so I'll just make a bunch of wild accusations right now.
I wish I could be you guys. Because it's just a great show. I mean, it's not, we tend to overpraise maybe, but it's just a great show.
I'm certainly enjoying it.
And the whole act of recording a podcast about a show is kind of worshipful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, bow down before it. But it's just such a rich amount of stuff, and regardless of what lies ahead, as Al Swearengen said,
or what lies beneath,
starring Harrison Ford, Michelle Pfeiffer. It's a very fun show to watch.
Well, I can't wait until, mid-season where like me and Chad just turn on it and then it becomes this really antagonistic relationship where we're just arguing fiercely.
And I've already agreed that we're like going to go to the town of Deadwood, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this fucking movie.
I hate this.
I hate this shit.
This has turned into garbage.
One of the benefits of it being canceled is that it doesn't have the chance to kind of have like the mission creep where it loses its focus.
Sure.
Because it kind of like someone I think me maybe once writing about it compared it to like JFK or Marilyn Monroe or someone who died young.
Oh right.
Like it died young, so it has the potential that it lost, and so you can't worry about like it. You don't get the 8 seasons of Deadwood.
Right.
You get 3.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have a chance to have a lull.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll just say no more.
Okay.
I don't.
Anyways.
Tooth beaver slapping logs. You can't keep the gold from me.